Alright, so we're picking up where we left off from. We are on Exodus 9. Go back to Pharaoh, the Lord commanded Moses. Tell him, this is what the Lord of the Hebrews, the God of the Hebrews says. Let my people go so they can worship me. If you continue to hold and refuse to let them go, the hand of the Lord will strike you and your livestock, your horses, your donkeys, your camels, your cattle, your sheep and goats, with a deadly plague. But the Lord will again make a distinction between the livestock of the Israelites and that of the Egyptians, that not one single animal of the Israelites will die. The Lord has already set a time for the plague to begin. He has declared that it will strike the land tomorrow. And the Lord did just as he said. The next morning, all the livestock of the Egyptians died, but Israel's didn't, not a single animal. Pharaoh sent his officials to investigate, and they discovered that the Israelites had not lost one single animal. But even so, Pharaoh's heart remained stubborn, and he still refused to let the people go. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, take a handful of shook from the brick kiln and have Moses toss it over into the air while Pharaoh is watching. And the ashes will spread as a fine dust all over all of Egypt, and causing a festation of boils to break out on the people and the animals throughout the land. So they took shook from the brick and kiln, and then they went and they stood before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh was watching Moses, and he threw the shook in the air, and the boils broke out to the people and the animals alike. Even the magicians were unable to stand before Moses because of the boils had broken out all over them, and all the Egyptians. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and just as the Lord had predicted, Moses and Pharaoh refused to listen. Moses had predicted to Moses, Pharaoh refused to listen. Then the Lord said to Moses, get up early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh. Tell him, this is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has said. Let my people go so they can worship me. If you do not do this, I will send a plague on you and on your officials and on your people, and then you will know that there is no one other like me on the earth. By now I could have lifted my hand and struck all of your people and with plague and wiped you off the face of the earth, but I have spared you for a purpose, to show my power and to spread my fame throughout the earth. But you still lord it over people and refuse to let them go. So tomorrow, at this time, I will send a hailstorm and more devastating than all of history of Egypt. Quick, order the livestock and the servants to come in from the fields and for the shelter, and the people and the animals and any person or animal left outside when the hail falls will die when the hail falls. Some of Pharaoh's officials were afraid, but because of what the Lord had said, they quickly brought all their servants and their livestock from the fields. But those who had paid no attention to the word of the Lord, they left theirs out in the open. Then the Lord said to Moses, lift up your hand towards the sky, so the hail may fall on the people, and the livestock and all the plants throughout the land of Egypt. So Moses lifted up his staff towards the sky, and the Lord sent thunder, hail, and lightning flashing down to the earth. The Lord sent tremors of hail against the land of Egypt. Never in the history of Egypt had there ever been a storm like this, and such devastation. It says such devastating hail and continuous lightning. It left all of Egypt in ruin, and the hailstorm struck down everything that was out in the open field, the people, the animal, the plants alike. Even the trees were destroyed. And only the place without hail was the reign of Goshen, where the people of Israel lived. Then Pharaoh quickly summoned Moses and Aaron. This time I have sinned, he confessed. The Lord is the righteous one of my people, and I am wrong. It says, and I are wrong. I'm sure they were supposed to put, and he was wrong. It says, please beg the Lord to end this terrifying thunder and hail. It said, we've had enough. I'll let you go, and don't stay any longer. You don't need to stay any longer. All right, Moses replied. As soon as we leave the city, I will lift up my hand and pray, and the Lord and the thunder and the hail will stop. And then you will know that this earth belongs to the Lord. But I know that the officials still do not fear the Lord. It says, all the flax and barley were ruined, and the hill because of the barley formed in the heads of flax and budding. Hold on, let me read that again. Although the flax and barley were ruined by the hail, because the barley had formed heads and the flax was budding, but the wheat and the emmer wheat were spared, because they had not sprouted from the ground yet. So Moses left Pharaoh's court and went out to the city. He went and lifted his hand, and the Lord and the thunder had stopped, and then the downpour ceased. But Pharaoh saw that the rain and the hail thunder stopped, and he and his officials sinned again, and Pharaoh became stubborn, because his heart was hard, and Pharaoh refused to let the people go. Let the people leave, just as the Lord had predicted through Moses. And now we're going to Exodus 10. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Return to Pharaoh and make this demand again. I have made him and his officials stubborn, so I can display my marvelous signs amongst them. I've also done it so that you can tell your children and your grandchildren about how I made a mockery of the Egyptians, and about the signs I displayed amongst them, so that you will know I am the Lord." So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "This is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says. How long will you refuse to submit to me? Let my people go, so they can worship me. If you refuse, watch out, for tomorrow I will bring a swarm of locusts to your country. They will cover the land, and you won't be able to see the ground, and they will devour what little is left of your crops after the hailstorm, including all the trees on the ground and all the fields, and they will run over your palaces and your homes and your officials and all the houses in Egypt. Never in the history of Egypt had your ancestors seen a plague like this one." And then, with that, Moses turned and left Pharaoh. Pharaoh's officials now came to Pharaoh, appealing with him, "How long will you let this man hold us hostage? Let him and his men go worship the Lord your God. Don't you realize that Egypt lies in ruins?" So Moses and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh. "All right," he told them, "go and worship the Lord your God. It says, "But who exactly will be going with you?" Moses replied, "We will all go, our young and our old, our sons and our daughters, our flocks and our herds. You must all join we must all join the celebration and festival to the Lord." Pharaoh retorted, "The Lord will certainly need to be with you if you take your little ones. I can see through your evil plan. Only the men will go and worship the Lord, since that is what you requested." And Pharaoh threw them out of the palace. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Raise your hand over the land of Egypt to bring on the locusts. Let them cover the land and devour every plant, every surviving thing from the hailstorm." So Moses raised his hand over Egypt, and the Lord caused the east wind to blow over the land that day and all that day and through the night. And when the morning arrived, the east wind had brought in locusts. The locusts swarmed all over the whole land of Egypt, settling in dense swarms from one end of the country to the other. It says this was the worst locust plague in Egyptian history there has never been another like it. For the locusts covered the whole country and the darkness of the land. They devoured every plant in the field and all the fruit of the trees that had survived from the hailstorm. Not a single leaf was left of trees on the trees and the plants throughout the land of Egypt. Pharaoh quickly summoned Moses and Aaron. "I have sinned against the Lord your God and against you." It says he confessed, "Forgive my sin, just this once," and he pleaded with the Lord your God, "Take away this death from me." So Moses left Pharaoh's court and pleaded with the Lord, and the Lord responded by shifting the wind, and a strong west wind blew the locusts into the Red River. Not a single one remained in the land of Egypt, but the Lord had hardened Pharaoh's heart again, so he refused to let the people go. Then the Lord said, "Lift up your hand towards the heavens, and then towards heaven, and the land of Egypt will be covered in darkness so thick that you could feel it." So Moses lifted up his hand into the sky, into the deep darkness, until deep darkness covered the entire land of Egypt for 3 days. During all this time, the people could not see each other, and no one moved. But there was a light, as usual, where the people of Israel lived. Finally, Pharaoh called Moses. Go and worship the Lord your God, he said. But leave your flocks and your herd here. It says here, you may even take your little ones with you. No, Moses said, you must provide the animals for the sacrifice and for the burnt offerings to the Lord your God, to the Lord our God. Our livestock must go with us. Not a hoof can be left behind. It says we must choose our sacrifice for the Lord our God amongst these animals, and we won't know how to worship the Lord until we get there. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart once more, and he would not let them go. Get back, get out of here, Pharaoh shouted to Moses. I warned you, never come back and see me again. The day I see your face, you will die. Very well, Moses replied, and then I will never see your face again. And we are going to stop there, and that is on Exodus 10:29. All right. I'll be back tomorrow to continue.